Scalpel of Silence. Chapter 1. The Fall. 10 years ago, Dr. Evelyn Hart was a rising star in cardiothoracic surgery at Halcyon Medical, a private hospital known for its prestige and ruthlessness. At 32, she had already led 3 successful valve replacements, contributed to 2 peer-reviewed journals, and was in line to co-direct the surgical residency program. Her hands were steady, her instincts sharp, and her ambition even sharper. But ambition attracts enemies. Her direct superior, Dr. Meredith Weil, was a legend. Ice-blooded, exacting, and politically untouchable, she viewed Evelyn with a mixture of admiration and threat. Evelyn represented what Meredith once was, brilliant and relentless, but unbroken. That made her dangerous. The mistake wasn't Evelyn's. The patient, a senator's wife, died on the table due to an undiagnosed aortic dissection missed on pre-op scans. Meredith had cleared the patient. She signed the approval. But when the post-mortem pressure began to build, Meredith pointed the scalpel elsewhere. A formal review board was convened within 48 hours. Evelyn was suspended. Her name, once synonymous with promise, was suddenly plastered across local news as reckless young surgeon costs life of political figure's spouse. Rumors swirled, interviews dried up. Her license wasn't revoked, but her reputation was. She vanished. Or so everyone believed. Chapter 2. Incision. 9 years, 11 months later, a new name appeared on the Halcyon Medical Staff Directory, Dr. Clara Weiss, Internal Medicine. Soft-spoken, glasses too big for her face, with a German-trained degree and forged credentials that passed every scrutiny. No one noticed her hands. They were surgeons' hands, but now she used them to administer IVs, check pulses, chart vitals. She didn't speak much. People liked her because she listened. Meredith Vale passed her in the hallway 3 times before ever glancing twice. The first time she looked, really looked, Evelyn's heart raced. But there was nothing, just a nod, a polite smile. It would be slow, surgical. Step 1 had already been in motion for 2 years. Evelyn had moved to a different city, worked in an obscure clinic under a new name, and traced every staff change at Halcyon Medical. She built patient trust online, wrote anonymous posts warning others of Vale's misdiagnoses, leaked 2 malpractice rumors to journalists, quietly elevated her own Clara Weiss credentials via online symposiums. And she waited. Because revenge isn't a scream. It's a whisper with a scalpel. Chapter 3. The Pulse Beneath the Surface. By month 3, Clara Weiss was an institution. Nurses trusted her. Residents deferred to her. She brought cinnamon scones to the nurses' station every Friday and remembered everyone's coffee order. The entire ER staff knew her as the gentle internist who volunteered for extra shifts and asked after their families. But underneath the smile, Evelyn was studying data. Halcyon had upgraded to a new internal system for logging diagnoses. Clara had access. She began tagging subtle inconsistencies in cases Meredith oversaw. Hypertension misread as anxiety. Early signs of heart failure dismissed as GERD. Harmless on the surface until patterns formed. She printed reports, annotated them, built a file so thorough it would take only 1 leak to ruin Meredith. But the final blow needed proximity. Dr. Vale was opening a new clinical trial for a cardiac stimulant with a controversial history. 1 patient had died in a prior iteration, but Halcyon's board had given her green light. If anything went wrong now, her entire credibility would collapse. Evelyn volunteered to coordinate patient intake. That week, she walked into Meredith's office with a tray of lab reports and something extra. A single, unmarked manila envelope. Meredith barely glanced up. "What's that?" "A complaint," Evelyn said, her voice soft. "From a patient. Claims a misdiagnosis from a previous visit with you." Meredith finally looked up. "Anonymous?" "No. Signed. Detailed." She watched Meredith's pupils tighten. That fraction of a second. Fear, panic, suppressed rage. "It's nothing," Vale said. "They always come up during trials. Just noise." But Evelyn knew better. She left the envelope on the desk. Inside, it wasn't a complaint. It was bait, a false report, written in the style of real ones she'd collected. She watched Meredith's hands shake as she'd opened it after she left. Now she waited. Chapter 4. Echoes and Evidence. Meredith didn't sleep that night. Evelyn knew because she monitored the security logs. Dr. Vale had bad habits, including logging into her terminal from the private surgical suite. At 2:47 a.m., her credentials lit up the internal system. Evelyn smiled. She checked her burner inbox the next morning, a reply from a journalist she'd worked with before. Anonymous tips about a cardiac trial at Halcyon Medical, raising concerns. She sent the fake complaint and, for flavor, included a heavily redacted version of an old malpractice filing from Vale's early career. Enough to draw curiosity, not enough to tie back. Then she waited again. Within a week, murmurs started. Dr. Vale grew clipped in meetings, snappish. She canceled 2 follow-ups with trial patients. At rounds, she forgot names. The interns noticed. So did the board. Evelyn began to record. She wore a discreet lapel mic during handoffs, captured moments of Meredith contradicting her own notes, uploaded it to an encrypted drive labeled Continuing Medical Education. Then she pulled her sharpest tool. She recommended a transfer patient into the trial, one who, on paper, was a great fit, except for a buried marker in his file, a genetic flag that made him especially vulnerable to the drug. She flagged it, once, casually. Vale missed it. Evelyn documented that. She was almost ready. But before the final incision, she needed one last witness, someone who remembered Evelyn Hart, someone from the past, and someone Meredith couldn't afford to lose. Chapter 5. Threads from the Past. He arrived on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Dr. Lucas Finnegan, now a well-known medical ethicist and former resident under Evelyn Hart's mentorship. At the time of the scandal, Lucas had been too junior to intervene, but never believed the official story. The news had troubled him for years. Now he was a guest lecturer at Halcyon, invited by none other than Dr. Vale to speak on accountability in experimental medicine. Evelyn nearly laughed. She waited until after his seminar, approached him in the staff lounge. "Dr. Finnegan?" Her voice trembled just enough. He turned, paused. "Evelyn?" She nodded. His jaw clenched, then softened, then disbelief. "I knew something never added up. What the hell happened to you?" She handed him a sealed folder. "This is everything. I want you to verify it, and when the time comes, I want you in that room." Lucas looked through the papers, timelines, reports, emails. He read in silence. "You built a case, a real one." "I'm not after drama," she said. "I'm after precision." Later that night, Lucas approached Dr. Vale at a fundraiser. He smiled, asked her one sharp question about her patient screening protocol. She stumbled. Interns nearby noticed, so did the chief of medicine. The thread was unraveling.
And someone in radiology, a young technician, began to whisper to colleagues, "Is it just me, or has Dr. Weiss been watching everything?"
Chapter 6. The Fainting Spell. 2 days after the fundraiser, Dr. Vale collapsed in the main hallway during her morning rounds. A sudden drop in blood pressure, said the ER note. Stress-induced, suspected the cardiologist. Evelyn stood silently outside the curtain. She didn't cause the fainting spell, but it was useful. The hospital board began asking questions. An impromptu audit of the clinical trial was called for. Meredith insisted she could lead it. The board overruled her, appointed Lucas Finnegan to head the inquiry. Vale's temper cracked. For the first time in a decade, staff saw her yell, shout, threaten. Evelyn stayed quiet. The patient with the buried genetic marker? He was pulled from the trial at the last minute by Evelyn, citing a vague allergy flag. But the paper trail of his recommendation and clearance had already been printed by Meredith. Lucas found it. He called Evelyn that evening. This is going to implode her. Evelyn looked out her window, down to the courtyard where Meredith used to eat lunch. "No," she said, "not yet. There's one more step." "Which is?" "We make her admit it." Lucas was silent. "And how do we do that?" Evelyn smiled. "By cutting exactly where it hurts most, her legacy." She began planning the next move, a controlled leak of documents to the residency board, casting doubt not just on Vale's conduct, but on the credibility of every paper and policy she co-authored in the last 10 years. Chapter 7. Legacy in Ashes. The leak began with a single anonymous submission to the National Medical Residency Accreditation Board, a well-organized bundle of clinical inconsistencies, procedural shortcuts, and statistical anomalies, all tied to Meredith Vale's signature. None of it was overtly damning, but all of it was real. Lucas verified every figure. The documents trickled outward, first to academic reviewers, then to Halcyon's legal department. A journalist Evelyn had once worked with received a thumb drive by courier. Within days, questions flooded Vale's email inbox. Was she falsifying trial data, skipping peer reviews, relying on ghostwriters? Vale denied everything, but she was tired, worn, off balance. Then came the final blow. A former patient's daughter stepped forward. A misdiagnosis, a quiet settlement, a name she remembered, Dr. Evelyn Hart, as the attending physician present, later erased from the final report. It made headlines. Lucas held a press conference, calm, ethical, surgical. "These aren't accusations," he said. "They're questions we're professionally obligated to answer." Evelyn never appeared. She watched from her apartment, sipping tea. The hospital board suspended Dr. Vale pending a full investigation, and for the first time in a decade, Evelyn Hart slept without nightmares. Chapter 8. The Mirror. Vale's office sat dark for 3 days. Curtains drawn. The nameplate remained, but the power had shifted. Evelyn walked past it daily, unseen, carrying her clipboard and notes like always. The trial was frozen. The audit widened. In the staff lounge, whispers had turned into conversations. Even those once loyal to Vale began to speculate. The once unshakable surgeon had vanished, but Evelyn, Clara, remained. Late one night, Evelyn found herself alone in the surgical theater. She stood in the center of the room, surrounded by sterile silence. She placed her palms on the table, and for a moment, she was home. Then she heard footsteps. "Lucas. She's resigning. Board gave her the option before formal charges." Evelyn nodded.
Lucas hesitated. "You're not going to disappear again, are you?" She looked at him, finally. Fully. "No," she said. "There's still work to do."
Chapter 9. The Return. The announcement came quietly. Meredith Vale was stepping down for personal health reasons. The hospital issued a brief press release. No mention of the investigation, no apology. But the staff knew, and so did the patients. Clara Weiss remained. She was offered an official position on the Clinical Oversight Committee. She declined. Instead, she requested something smaller, stranger, a rotation mentoring third-year residents in diagnostic ethics. The board agreed. Lucas visited her office later that week. "Why not take more?" he asked. "You earned it." Evelyn looked up from her notes. "Because I'm not here to replace her, just to undo what she built." Lucas smiled. "You really think one person can fix all that?" She didn't answer, just handed him a list. It was names, cases, old ones. "Every patient we failed while she covered it up, I want them re-reviewed." Lucas looked at the list. Long, painful. "All right," he said. "Let's begin." Evelyn closed her laptop. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was hiding. She was healing.
Chapter 10. Exposure. The hospital's legal team quietly finalized a confidential settlement with the family of the senator's wife, the very case that had started it all. Evelyn read the terms, unsigned and folded on her desk. No admission of guilt, but a payout large enough to imply it. Lucas walked in, dropping a new stack of files. "These are the last of the suppressed cases, all confirmed." Evelyn didn't look up. "We publish it. They'll fight it. They'll lose." Lucas exhaled. "You're really going to light the match, huh?" She met his eyes. "I'm going to make sure no one ever hides behind credentials again." She emailed the entire compiled archive, redacted for privacy, but detailed enough to raise flags, to 3 medical watchdog organizations. Within 48 hours, headlines exploded. "Halcyon under scrutiny for decade of systemic malpractice." This time, Evelyn Hart's name wasn't absent. It was on the byline. She didn't flinch from the media storm. She gave one interview, calm, measured. A quote from it went viral. "We are taught to do no harm, but silence, too, is a blade." She didn't return to Halcyon. She had other hospitals to visit, other scalps to expose, other silences to cut.
Chapter 11. Aftercare. The sun had already begun its descent when Evelyn walked past the gates of Halcyon for the last time. No goodbyes, no ceremony. Inside, the fallout was spreading. The Board of Medical Integrity had launched a full investigation. Meredith Vale had been summoned to testify under oath. Several former administrators resigned in the span of 48 hours. Public trust in Halcyon wavered. Donations dried. The press circled like vultures. And Evelyn? She disappeared again. Not to hide, but to heal. 6 months later, a conference took place in Geneva. The subject, Rebuilding Ethical Infrastructure in Post-Scandal Institutions. Among the keynote speakers, listed without credentials or medical titles, was E. Hart, independent researcher and author. She stood at the podium, voice steady, hair now streaked with silver, scars hidden beneath a tailored black jacket. She said, "I once believed the worst thing that could happen was being betrayed by someone you trusted, but I was wrong. The worst thing is silence. Silence is what allows harm to survive. It is the antiseptic used to sterilize abuse." Her book, Scalpel of Silence, had been translated into 14 languages. But she didn't stay in the spotlight. After Geneva, she vanished once more, this time by choice. Lucas received a postcard months later. A seaside town. No return address. On the back, in Evelyn's careful script, "Sometimes survival isn't enough. Justice isn't revenge. And healing is a quiet place we build for ourselves." Below it, a single word: free.